Well, it's a little late by a couple of weeks, but NXT UK finally established their women's division. Let's talk about it. What's going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, here with your NXT UK November 14th Part 1 review, and it's a good one. Lots of short matches meant we got a lot more faces on the card. We got a great announcement, as we say, about the women's division, which we're going to talk about in a second. Nice, compact little episode of NXT, kind of like NXT proper, where sometimes we get one or two matches that go a long time, and that's fine. They tell a nice story and whatever. Sometimes you get a bunch of short matches where there aren't as many stories, just to see more faces on the card. This is the latter. We start off with they say all the women, but really it's 8 because you can't make a tournament with an odd number, but all the women are out there. Triple H is out there with Johnny Saint. Out there with him is Ginny, Toni Storm, Zaya Brookside, Ela Dawn, Rhea Ripley, Millie McKenzie, Dakota Kai, and Nina Samuels. Now, what kills me right off the bat, because they're out there to announce obviously the women's title. The women's belt, as I said ages ago when the images were leaked, is an absolutely gorgeous belt. NXT UK, if you go from Pete Dunne's WWE UK title to the women's title to the tag titles that we're going to get eventually, they have the best looking belts in all of WWE. I don't mind NXT proper's titles and whatnot, but I mean, they're better than the main rosters. The ones that they've made for the UK are just fucking great, and Triple H and Johnny Saint are out there. It's nice to see Triple H on hand for all the initial announcements for NXT UK. That's a nice little touch. Johnny Saint has this sort of like grandfatherly way of overlooking the entire roster, so it's all good. So the two of them together are a nice little authoritative team for announcements like this. But what kills me about this, and no pun intended, is Killer Kelly's not involved in this. Now, Killer Kelly was involved in the triple threat back at Royal Albert Hall for the #1 contendership that eventually Toni Storm won, I think, to take on Shayna Baszler. But her match against Hiroyu Matsumoto this year in sorry guys, really tired still, my bad. This year's Mae Young Classic was really good, and she's done some good stuff on the NXT UK brand for the short time that it's been around. So it's really a bummer that Killer Kelly's not involved in this, and you've got everybody else here that I'm really into, and Nina Samuels, who really hasn't shown me much yet. So I would have thought personally that Killer Kelly would have been in that Nina Samuels spot, but they're out there. Triple H does the sort of traditional, hey, NXT UK, are you ready? All the girls are just sitting there like, yes, let's just get on with this so one of us can get that belt, is the look on a lot of the faces, but they're all happy. You had to come out, you had to sort of announce the title, because this is the first title announced for this brand, because as I keep saying, they keep referring to Pete Dunne's title as the WWE UK title, and this is NXT UK, so they need to clear up the terminology on that. I know that's a little tiny nitpicky thing that I don't think anybody else gives a shit about, but this is the first title announced specifically for this brand, so you have to go with that. You have to acknowledge the importance of this is sort of the first title that's been announced for the brand. I mean, the brand was announced after Pete Dunne's title was already established like a year and a half ago. But the belt is amazing. The women involved in this are amazing. As I said during the Mae Young Classic, the Mae Young Classic this year basically served one purpose, and that was to get us hyped for all the women that were going to be involved in the NXT UK women's division. And I think they did a great job of that, because all of them, right down to somebody really young like Zaya Brookside, or somebody like Dakota Kai, who you guys already know, I've already been a huge fan of in NXT proper. I've always called her Bayley done properly. But I mean, Toni Storm should have won the Mae Young Classic last year. Rhea Ripley transformed herself this year. Millie McKenzie, I haven't seen that much of other than online stuff. Nina Samuels has been on the show and kind of meh. Ela Dawn has sort of like that dark gothic vampiric thing going on that I personally like. Ginny is just another ass kicker along the same lines of Killer Kelly, obviously. I would have loved one of the first round matches to be Ginny versus Killer Kelly, because I think that would have been a lot of fun. But maybe, I don't know, I haven't read enough dirt sheets, maybe Killer Kelly's injured. And that's why they stuck Nina Samuels in there. We replay the Ashton Smith beatdown by Wolfgang and the Coffees from a couple of weeks ago, building up this 3-on-3 rivalry that we have going on between Ashton Smith and Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster versus Wolfgang and the Coffees. Before Wolfgang and the Coffees, I'm sure eventually will go take on British Strong Style, and that will be amazing. But that's another story for another day. Sid Scala takes on Jordan Devlin, and Sid Scala, I'm starting to like this guy by default because he's that Dolph Ziggler, James Ellsworth guy that they just bring out to beat up when they're trying to put somebody else over. And Jordan Devlin is a creepy dude. I don't know whether this is intentional or not, because he does have those Finn Balor attributes to him. He was trained by Finn Balor. They're both Irish. They both obviously fight with a similar style. But Jordan Devlin is like a creepier Finn Balor. Jordan Devlin is creepier than Finn Balor when he's the demon. He's just got this look about him that you know something's not right, and I like it. It's good. It's sort of unsettling, and if he's a bad guy, which he's being portrayed to be, then yeah, let him go out there and let him be unsettling, and let him be let him put that vibe out there of being not quite right. But anyways, there's a caller double time, and Jordan grinds the face in the corner. Quick flurry by Sid, and again, as I say, he does these little quick flurries, like quick strike combinations, and all it makes me think of, because of his size and because of how they're presenting him, I can't help but think of the Ellsworth Strowman thing, you know, any man with two hands has a fighting chance, and that's basically all Sid gets in here. Standing moonsault by Jordan is pretty damn good. Mudhole by Jordan, a mule kick and an arm bar suplex. Basically posts the arm, lifts him up by the arm, and throws him into a suplex, which is really nice, and is not something I would want to happen to me. I'm not going to lie. Uppercut by Jordan, slingshot diamond cutter, which is a new one for me. Another quick flurry by Sid, but we got a drop kick by Jordan, and then that weird over the shoulders into the side slam thing that Jordan Devlin wins. And we don't know what that move is called. We don't know what that move is called to the point where Nigel McGuinness on commentary says, I don't know what that move's called, but it's effective. It is a bummer to not have names of moves called. That's a very minor nitpick. A lot of people I've heard talking about NXT UK don't like the overdubbed commentary, and they don't, when they show them on screen, when they're in front of the green screen and they're obviously not there, whatever, that's a bit jarring. But in the match, if you let yourself get into the match, the overdubbed commentary doesn't really bug me personally. I'd be really interested to know down in the box below if you guys are bothered by it, because I'm really not. He cuts a promo after the match, and it's really just making fun of the roster and how he's a real man, and because the guy interviewing him asks if we've seen the real Jordan Devlin, and he's like, basically, this is me, I am the real Jordan Devlin. Why don't you go ask those guys in the back who they are? And then he specifically starts mocking Ligero, and he's like, oh, look at that guy running around in a Halloween mask. You know, he claims to be a luchador, and he's from wherever. They name off some local place in the UK that obviously I'm not familiar with. But it's like, there's a lot of big names on the NXT UK brand already. I mean, you want to single out somebody like a Zach Gibson or a Trent Seven, Tyler Bate, Pete Dunne, Flash Morgan Webster, all these guys that are already in the early stages of the show being positioned as the top guys. And he focuses his promo on Ligero, which I don't understand, and then he leaves. And you can see, if you watch it in the crowd, you see some people sort of like, huh? Like, you see him tearing down the whole roster like a heel does, and everybody's like, okay, he's doing the heel thing, we'll roll through it. And then he specifically zeroes in on Ligero, and everybody's like, what? So I found that really, really amusing. They replayed the Mustache Mountain promo from episode 1 of NXT UK, basically loosely referencing the fact that there will be tag team titles. Now, I'm glad that they didn't do this like SmackDown. Do you remember after the brand split 2.0, when they brought everybody to the ring, and everybody ended up being just the tag teams and the women, and they revealed both belts at once? Now, that was a cool thing for a bigger show to do. They got 2 hours to fill, and they did it, everybody all at once. I like the fact that we rolled out the show, reminded everybody that Pete Dunne is the champion, had a couple title matches. Now we're rolling out the women's title. We'll get the tag titles later on. Slower progression is a benefit that you have from something like NXT, where there's only an hour, where you can fill an hour with just revealing one title, and 6 weeks down the line you can fill another whole hour with just revealing the tag titles. And I'm sure eventually down the line there will be a mid-card title if the show does as well as we hope it's going to do. You got to remember, the NXT UK title became the de facto mid-card title of NXT. Before NXT UK started, so we have to pull it out of mid-card title status and make it feel like a main title before they can have another mid-card title. Now, speaking of sizes of crowds and whatnot, I forgot to mention this is a new set of tapings, so they are at a brand new venue, and they skipped over the name of the venue quite a bit. So somebody down in the comment section below, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it says they're coming live from the Insomnia Gaming Center. I think is what they said. People definitely, my friends over in the UK, Fear the Spear, I'm looking at you, familiar with that part of the world. Please, anything like this, anything geographical, please correct me down in the box below if I'm wrong. But the first set of tapings was done at the Cambridge Corn Exchange, which was cool, but it was a very small venue, and it felt like NXT. This venue here, this Insomnia Gaming Center, is slightly larger. Gave more of a WWE size house show feel, and the larger crowd does work. Ashton Smith later on, who has people sort of hoot during his entrance, people didn't quite catch on to it right away, so you can tell he's in front of a new audience, and that's cool. But by the third or fourth taping, I'm sure they will be quite into it. Now, they replayed the promo from Mustache Mountain so that they could have an in towards talking about those coming tag team championships. Now, they go on, the commentators do, to talk about, you know, oh my god, who are we going to see fight for these titles, like it's not going to be Mustache Mountain and the Coffee Brothers at the end. But they're going to throw some teams together. Amir Jordan and Kenny Williams. Now, these guys come out, and they're a lot of fun. Kenny Williams kind of looks like a video game character. Kenny Williams, immediately when I saw him, kind of reminded me of a UK equivalent of somebody like a TJP. Amir Jordan comes out, and even though he's from the UK, he's got that sort of ethnic Indian element to his entrance, where you've got the upbeat music and the dancing and all that. So obviously, they're the fun-loving team. They're the baby faces in this match. Then you get Saxton Huxley, who's the muscle cat, because that's not awkward, and Joseph Connors, who's been in both of the UK title tournaments, who looks terrifying and is missing part of his ear, so the Mick Foley references and comparisons there are quite obvious. Jordan and Huxley start the match, and there's a takedown by Huxley, a knuckle lock and a high knee by Huxley, crossbody and a hip toss by Jordan. Williams works over the wrist, leg drop by Williams, cheap shots by Connors and Huxley. Connors works Jordan's head in between the turnbuckles. He does the typical spot where, you know, you move out of the way, somebody else spears themselves conveniently between the second and third turnbuckle, but then he sort of wraps his head up and down. If you picture the pad of the turnbuckle, and then you picture the bolt behind it, which is, I think, the actual turnbuckle, because it's the part that turns, he just basically cracks his head between those two bolts, which is interesting, if nothing else. It wasn't the most effective looking thing in the world, because it's obviously protected. If you remember a couple weeks ago when Randy Orton put Ty Dillinger's fingers in the turnbuckle and very gently pulled back, because if he had actually done it, he would have broken his hand. It would have been an imperfect 9 instead of a perfect 10. But you could tell it was quite protected just because of the dangerousness of the area. It was the same thing here. You got the idea. The idea was very, very good. Execution was less than great. But anyways, high knee by Huxley. Huxley and Jordan trade punches, and there's second rope lariat by Jordan. Enziguri by Jordan. Springboard back elbow by Williams. Faceplant by Huxley, and sort of a jumping inverted mic check by Connors for the win. Gets him up sort of like guys do, like up on his hips, like when people do a deadlift suplex, except instead of doing a deadlift suplex, he just dropped him back on his face, mic check style. Connors and Huxley get the win. They look like a really, really formidable team. They talk a lot about the guy's size, and you know, you play up the big guy, little guy thing, and it's WWE, so I guess they have to. It's like, yes, we get it. One of them is bigger than the other. It's fine. The other two, the British TJP and the fucking, what the hell's his name, Amir, were an entertaining team, and I could see them actually, even though they're not, their gimmicks aren't similar. You get two fun gimmicks together, and they kind of meld automatically. It's like the rumor that we got that, what's their name? The Street Profits are going to eventually go up to SmackDown and join the New Day. I don't like that idea, per se. I really don't, because it's tiptoeing the line of stereotypes, which we don't want to touch on here. But I could see those two gimmicks getting along. Like, I could see the five of them being sort of being a Survivor Series team per se. Like I could see New Day coming out with the Street Profits and they all have their own solo cups, or you know, they all five of them have pancakes or whatever. When you have happy, positive, fun gimmicks, they tend to blend together better than just two aggressive assholes that are going to come out there and be aggressive assholes and don't need to blend anything. Rambled on that quite long enough. We see the bracket for the first round of the Women's Championship Tournament. It's going to be Dakota Kai versus Nina Samuels. Awesome. Rhea Ripley versus Xia Brookside. R.I.P. in advance, Xia Brookside. Millie McKenzie versus Ginny, which is fine. And my heart's one true song, Toni Storm, taking on my heart's other only one true song, Ela Dawn. So NXT UK trying to give me a heart attack right away, giving me Toni Storm versus Ela Dawn. Good lord. Trent Seven versus Zach Gibson is announced for next week, aka it'll probably be reviewed in part 2. Tyler Bate taking on James Drake, who's known as the Luckian, not the Lucky One, the Luckian, which is fine, and I don't know. It's like Domino in Deadpool 2. Like, is luck a superpower? Okay. Is luck a gimmick? And if you're calling yourself lucky in wrestling, you know, Roddy Piper always said it's better to be lucky than good. But if you're talking about how lucky you are you talking about how good you aren't? That's a very tricky gimmick if that's what they're going to go with for him. But collar elbow tie up and Bate works the arm, and there's a takedown by the wrist, snapmare by Drake, armbar by Bate, and reversal by Drake. Drop kick by Bate, a left jab and a forearm by Drake. Knees to the back, a sleeper hold by Drake, snapmare by Drake, stomping on the face and choking on the ropes. Chops by Bate, drop Bate, drop kicks by Drake, and a headlock. Jumping head scissor by Bate, clothesline and a back elbow, high knee and a back elbow by Bate, capture suplex by Bate. Capture suplex by Bate is always good because he's got that Taz element to him, where he's not a big guy. He's sort of a short, stocky. You know, they always refer to guys like Taz and Rhino and stuff like that as spark plugs, where they're shorter, but they've got the short burst energy when they do something like a throw. So when he does the capture suplex, it's got a surprising amount of power to it, because your brain doesn't want to process that somebody that small was able to do that to their larger opponent. So that's nice. Running star press by Bate, which is always nice, followed by a suicide dive and a backdrop. Corner dropkick by Drake. They trade some punches, but there's a lariat by Bate, the Tyler Driver 97, and Tyler Bate gets the win. I think I mentioned this the other week. Great matches thrown together week by week, and this match was no exception. But you've got the guys, as I've said numerous times now, that are clearly going to be the tent poles of this brand, and it is Mustache Mountain, it is Toni Storm, it is Rhea Ripley, it is Wolfgang and the Coffee Brothers. So if they have a match, the only way you're going to surprise me is if they lose, because I assume they're going to win. And if you surprise me by them losing, I'm going to be bummed, because I also do like them. So I'd like to be more excited by them winning. I'd like them to go forward, making me believe that they have a chance to win, or that they have a chance to lose, and still getting the win. It's that Undertaker at WrestleMania syndrome. Like, you could never really be excited or surprised when Undertaker won, because you were so conditioned that he was going to win, and whoever else was there, like, their win was being there. I don't want to see the same thing happen here. I want guys like Mustache Mountain, Pete Dunne, etc. to be excited, and for the fans to be excited when they win. But right now, in its initial stage, it's expected that they're going to win. So that's kind of a bummer. Ashton Smith versus Wolfgang with the Coffee Brothers in Wolfgang's corner. We're playing up this, again, this 3-on-3 faction warfare on the brand already. As I said, I do find it funny. I have this image that Wolfgang is going to be the NXT UK champion sooner than later, because I think you're going to have these three, Wolfgang and the Coffee Brothers, taking the titles from Mustache Mountain and Pete Dunne, the British Strong Style faction. I think there's going to be a brief period where, like, the tag titles are established, the Coffee Brothers are going to take them, and then Wolfgang is going to take Pete Dunne's title. I don't want that to happen. I think Pete Dunne's a great champion, and he's done a great job holding up this brand before it even existed. Also, he's still technically the Destiny champion, even though Josh Alexander is the interim champion. I don't want it to happen, but I think it's going to. I think you're going to have that faction, that heel faction that has all the titles, and all the titles right now is 2. Anyways, Ashton Smith, and I know what people are going to say about this as soon as I say what I'm about to say, and y'all can go fuck yourself. Ashton Smith is becoming, in my mind, sort of the Ricochet of NXT UK. I think this guy's great. I'm actually kind of bummed that I've never seen this guy before, because he's a lot of fun to watch. Anyways, collar and elbow tie up by Smith, and Smith vices the neck and he gets tossed out of the ring by Wolfgang. Uppercuts by Wolfgang, dropkick by Smith, and a gutbuster by Wolfgang. I love the gutbuster by Wolfgang because he always waits until somebody smaller than him is coming off the top rope, and the way he does a gutbuster is almost an inverted code breaker in midair as the other person is coming down from the top rope. So it's always effective. He's always using his opponent's own momentum against him, and he's always using his gigantic size to stop a high flyer in their tracks. It's really good. It's that whole, like, you know, speeding down the highway until you hit a mountain thing. That was a terrible, terrible metaphor, and I am sorry. Mudhole by Wolfgang and a hard Irish whip and a high knee. A series of strikes by Smith. Reverse bear hug by Wolfgang that eventually gets turned into a proper bear hug by Wolfgang. A pump kick by Smith. 2 high knees and a clothesline by Smith and a back elbow. Second rope crossbody by Smith and some right hands, but a gorilla front slam by Wolfgang, a running senton, and another slam that I don't know what it's called. There's a lot of those in this week's episode. Wolfgang gets the win. Wolfgang gets the win without the Coffee Brothers getting extremely involved. I mean, I think they distracted on the outside once or twice, and they're 3 really big, imposing dudes, so they're going to be a distraction regardless. But there wasn't a run-in, there wasn't a DQ, there wasn't a, you know, Flash Morgan Webster and Mark Andrews run out and it turns into a melee and there's no ending. There's nothing like that. Relatively clean win for the heel, which is something you don't see a lot in WWE. So this was a great match. I say this all the time, the, you know, David and Goliath idea is played out to death by WWE. But when it's done properly, it's still really, really good, and you can't help but get behind the little guy. It's why when we talked about NXT last night and you had Kyle O'Reilly versus who was it, Warbeard Hansen, you couldn't help but feel bad for Kyle O'Reilly. Kyle O'Reilly's on the heel team, but when you see them one-on-one, Hansen comes off as the heel just by the in-ring style alone. It's a very tricky thing to do. That's why you want to make sure your big guy is your bad guy. The other way really doesn't work. This was a great episode. I haven't watched the second episode yet. We're going to get to that shortly. We're going to start the women's tournament. We're going to see Zach Gibson versus who's he taking on? Trent Seven. I'm very tired. Very, very late in the day. But yeah, this for a first half, for as long as they're going to do these 2 episodes per week, which I hope isn't forever. This was a great first half. We got the announcement of the title. We got the, I guess you could say the paperwork of it out of the way. We revealed the belt itself. Triple H and Johnny Saint introduced us to who's competing in the tournament, even though Killer Kelly's been left out. We got the bracket all in one show, and now we know what to expect going forward. So we've done the paperwork. Now let's see the fights on the next episode. I'll talk to you guys soon. I've been Spaz, your YWC Reality Check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation, keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I'll talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, I am tagging out. Bye, guys. More announcements regarding Fearless, Destiny Wrestling's first ever iPay-per-view on Fight TV, happening November 25th. But before I get to those, I do want to congratulate Destiny Wrestling for their new announced working relationships with both Fight Club Pro and Blackcraft Wrestling. Both of those companies are doing combined shows with Destiny in the near future. I encourage you, especially if you're in the local area, to go check those out. I think the one with Fight Club Pro is happening in New York. The one with Blackcraft is actually happening in my backyard, which is always great. They've added another match to Fearless. It's going to be new Destiny talent Channing Decker taking on Teddy Hart. Now, obviously, that's in addition to the match that we already know about, which is interim Destiny champion Josh Alexander taking on Ray Phoenix and Rich Swann. This is building up to be a hell of a card. Destiny's growing. I'm happy for them. You guys should check them out, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.